Hi, I'm Mohua Sengupta, a senior business leader from the IT industry. After multiple stints at the CXO level in different companies, currently I'm an independent consultant, and I'm going to talk to you about blockchain. Now, why do you need to know about blockchain? Because according to many people, including myself, it's the next biggest thing after the internet. It's going to be a paradigm shift. It's going to change the way we do business. It's going to change the way we live our lives. That's how big it is going to be. So we all need to know about it. Now, if I ask you what is blockchain, most of you will have an answer. But it was not so 3 to 5 years back. But can you tell me when blockchain came into being? It was as early as 2008. A gentleman named Satoshi Nakamoto came up with blockchain technology. Though nobody knows his identity, no one has come up and said that, okay, I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. But we get the name from his codes, and it is as early as 2008. So 12 years later, we can still say that blockchain technology is in its infancy, or rather blockchain is in its infancy as far as the usage is concerned, not the technology. Now, let's try and understand, before we get into more detail, let's first try and understand what is blockchain. Most of you, I think 50 to 60% of the people, if I ask what is blockchain, will have the answer, it's Bitcoin. It's not so. Bitcoin is just a use case of blockchain. Just like email or e-commerce is a use case of internet, Bitcoin is just a use case of blockchain technology. So now then, what is blockchain? Blockchain is a distributed ledger technology. What is a distributed ledger technology? Let's first try to understand blockchain through an example. It will make it easier. Now let's assume I want to transfer $100 to my brother who lives in US. Today I'll advise my bank, and it will go through multiple intermediaries, different banks and central bank of different countries, etc. And finally it will hit my brother's account in his bank in US. So it will debit my account, credit his account, and the transaction is complete. Now what happens in the process? At least almost a week has passed. A few years later, a few years earlier, it would be almost a month. We have improved, but it's still almost a week. And my brother is not going to get the full $100. He will get maybe 92, 93, or a little less or more depending on the service charges of each of the banks. But he's definitely not getting the full amount. So look how inefficient the process is. It's taking a lot of time. It is giving me less money, and I'm paying for this inefficiency. Now what is happening? Why the delay? Because today, each of these organizations are maintaining their own ledgers and they're reconciling with each other. This takes time. So it is taking much longer. Secondly, maintaining all these intermediaries, they have a cost. Now who's paying for it? Each of these transactions are will have to pay a part of it, part of their cost. So that's why the full amount doesn't go to the recipient. So that's the inefficiency we have today. In the blockchain world, this is not going to happen. What happens in the blockchain world? I make a transaction. There is a gentleman called a miner. I'm going to explain to you later on who the miner is. But this miner solves some complex algorithms, and almost real time, he ratifies the transaction. Once the transaction is ratified, it gets added to multiple nodes. Who are these multiple nodes? Me, my brother, all these intermediary organizations will be different nodes in the same blockchain, same chain. So each transaction, once ratified by the miner, gets added as a separate block into the same chain. That's when the transaction is complete. So what are the advantages we already saw? It's faster, much faster. And there is efficiency because my brother is getting almost the full amount. He's not having to give anything for maintaining the intermediaries, maybe a small amount, but which will be a fraction of what he's spending what we are spending today. What are the other benefits? One of the biggest advantages of blockchain is security. So security, why is it more secure? Today, if a hacker wants to hack an account, all they have to do is hack the bank's ledger. And that's it. Then God save us. But in the blockchain world, there is no single source of truth. Each ledger is identical, and it is sitting in, the ledgers are identical, and they are sitting in all the different nodes. So if I want to hacking one node will not help, two nodes will not help, 3, 10, 100, 200, many will not help, because there are millions of nodes in the chain, and as long as I'm not able to hack all of them, I will not be able to do a fraud. So that's how secure the blockchain technology is. So it's fast, it's secure. Now let's see what are the other benefits of blockchain. The third benefit is traceability or auditability. Now in blockchain world, in blockchain technology, nothing can be edited. Once a transaction goes through, the transaction goes through. It becomes a block, gets attached to the chain. It's immutable. Nobody can change it. So if I have to reconcile something, or if I have to trace back or audit, you can easily trace it. So it is extremely safe and secure, and there is perfect auditability. That's the third advantage. Fourth advantage is, see, today in our current scenario, imagine the pressure on the banks, or pressure on the, not so much on the banks, pressure on the, if a bank goes down under, imagine the pressure on the economy, pressure on the government. So we have tremendous dependence on our financial institutions or banks per se, and that puts a huge pressure on the economy or the government. Because today, if a bank goes down under, it's going down under with all our books of records. But tomorrow, in the blockchain world, the books of records or the ledgers are being maintained in multiple nodes. So there is no single source of truth. Each of these sources of truth are identical. So if a bank is inefficient and it goes down under, nobody cares. Finally, the biggest advantage of blockchain is interoperability. Now let's take another example. See, I'm buying a car today. If I were to buy a car, there is a purchaser, there's a seller, there are banks or leasing companies, there is a car insurance company, and there can be many other parties, some lawyers, something else. Now, each one of them, these today, is multiple phone calls, long hours spent, days before I can get my car with all the documents perfectly done. In the blockchain world, all these parties will be in the same chain, and they can all interact real time, and this same function can happen. All these multiple transactions involved in buying a car, they can all happen real time, immediately, instantaneously, and I can get my car within a day with all the documentations done. This is called interoperability. Everybody is operating amongst each other real time with all ease. That's the biggest advantage of blockchain. Now, is there a negative? Yes. The negative is efficiency. Efficiency in the sense that there are only about 7 or 8 transactions can be processed in per second, which is not good, which is not great, I would say. And work is happening to improve that, and there are other distributed ledger technologies besides blockchain who have higher efficiency. So it's not an impossible scenario. Now, before I move on further, I'll also explain to you who are the miners, because I told you I'll explain to you who are the miners. Now, miners are the people who solve these complex algorithms to make sure that the transaction is ratified. Now, in simple terms, say today we are maintaining all these institutions, right? The intermediaries. Now, in the blockchain scenario, in the blockchain world, somebody will have to maintain the platform. I don't want to maintain it because I'm just a node. You don't want to maintain it because you're just a node. Similarly, no individual or no organization would want to maintain it because they are just one party amongst millions. So the people who are managing it or maintaining it, in simple terms, they are the ones who are called the miners. We can get into a lot more detail on miners, but which we will do another time. Now, in spite of all these advantages, why isn't blockchain becoming mainstream? Why don't we see a lot more real-life implementation of blockchain? Yes, efficiency is an issue, but it's not a huge issue. That's not the reason it's not getting implemented. It's true that any technology, new technology, takes time to be mainstream, but 12 years is a heck of a lot of time. But it's still in its infancy as far as usage is concerned. One of the problem that blockchain has is it's not an incremental improvement, right? Say today if I run a call center and I implement a bot, then it's not that difficult to show the ROI of that investment. But in case of blockchain, it's not that tangible. It is tangible, but it's not that measurable. Everybody knows that there is ROI. Everybody knows that there are advantages, but it's difficult to quantify and place it to the board. The other problem is nobody wants to be the first mover. See, a blockchain will be successful. A blockchain implementation is successful when there are multiple players there. Now imagine in my bank example, if I am sitting on a blockchain and no one else is there, do I gain? No. So blockchain is advantageous when everybody, a lot of companies, a lot of people jump onto the bandwagon, which is why the first movers don't have an advantage. So nobody wants to be the first mover, unlike most technologies where first movers do have an advantage. Now, the next issue that blockchain poses is the complication around interoperability. Now, interoperability, as we have discussed, is a fabulous advantage of blockchain, but it's also very difficult or complicated to actually implement it. Because say if 5 banks have to sit together and make a decision together with the central bank, in our case Reserve Bank, how hard is it? Extremely difficult to get them all around the table and get a decision. Now, for all this interoperability to work, everybody jumping on the bandwagon of blockchain, there has to be a lot of these decisions that have to be made together with multiple industries there, all their regulators, etc., which is tremendously difficult. That is why this is a situation where regulators need to take a step first. In most cases, the technology gets implemented, business usage starts, and regulators step in. For example, say SWIFT protocol. Banks got together, started the protocol, and then only regulators jumped in. In this case, we need the regulators to take the first step and encourage the organizations to actually jump into the blockchain in order to get the full benefit of this tremendously potential technology. So that's about it for today. We can get into a lot more detail about blockchain, each areas of blockchain, but I think this is enough for to understand what blockchain is, what are its advantages and disadvantages, and what is holding it back. But there are multiple use cases which are really low-hanging fruits, like KYC, health records, smart contracts, or say land records. Andhra government has started implementing land records through blockchain. Some of these low-hanging fruits, I'm expecting more and more real-life mainstream implementation happening soon. And as success breeds success, we will see, once we see multiple successful implementation of blockchain, I'm sure blockchain is very soon going to be a mainstream technology. Thank you.